Michael Sayih and Max Fink have a special attachment. They're two regular racing partners who compete in countless 5Ks, Ironmans, and marathons all over the world. But before they were partners, they had their own reasons to race. When he was born with cerebral palsy 32 years ago, Michael's parents were told to commit him to a hospital. His father, Jim, says that was not an option.
I just really knew, there was no doubt that he was going to live a life of fulfillment and a life of abundance.
At a young age, Michael seemed to know that too.
I saw other people doing all these races, and I told my dad, I'm gonna do it too. So my first race was at the age of 5 years old.
At just 5 years old, Michael competed in his first duathlon with Jim as his partner. His brother competed by their side, a new challenge for all of them.
We wrecked a few times during the 30K bike ride, and I thought for sure he was never going to want to do this ever again. But his brother said, "Hey, Dad, there's a 5K coming up. You want to do that one?" So I said, "Let's ask Michael." So we asked Michael, and we kind of thought he was going to say no. Right away, he instantly said yes.
That tenacity after his first race has stuck with Michael. He's gone on to do countless races, as seen by the many medals hanging in his room. And Jim was inspired to create Special Compass, a nonprofit which helps people with disabilities compete in athletic events.
So over the years, parents that have kids with disabilities would ask me if I would push their kids in races. And of course, I always want to say yes, but if I did that, then Michael would be a spectator and he would just watch his dad pushing someone else. So I started recruiting other guys that were runners and athletes and asked them if they would push kids in chairs. And we now have 132 differently abled athletes that are assigned to Special Compass. And we have 132 volunteers, and we have a handful of ambassadors. Max obviously is an ambassador, and a badass ambassador.
Max is a fellow runner from South Florida. His reason for racing? His mom passed away from cancer in 2015. He and his sister decided to honor her by running the New York City Marathon, something his mom did when he was 6 years old.
And as I was training for that race, I had met Jim and Michael, and they had a 5K, and I went there and just got paired with Michael by happenstance. And I did the 5K, and I was, hooked like a drug immediately. Like, it was one of the most fulfilling things I'd ever done in my life. The energy from Michael and Jim and the entire group was indescribable. And we've been, locked at the hip, the three of us, ever since.
Two athletes who met doing what athletes do, competing. But perhaps they were brought together by something more divine. And Michael's spirit reminded Max of the person he was racing for, his mom.
I definitely think it was a sign from my mom, and she brought Michael and Jim and I together, and it was so much part of who she was. She was like this energetically bubbly woman who only cared about other people other than herself, and that her attitude on life was so positive and always about the good and not the bad, and it's exactly how Michael and Jim lived their life. And so I think that's why we clicked, and I absolutely think she brought our paths together, 100%.
They've been on a path as teammates and now friends.
So Michael's always smiling, but then he starts to ask me if I'm doing okay. And as soon as he says, "Max, are you doing okay?" it means I've substantially slowed down. And so then I get really worried. And I look at the watch and I'm like, oh, I guess we did slow down a bit. So if you ever see Michael on the race course, he'll be going for high fives. But if he's looking back at me and saying, "Are you okay?" then something's probably gone a little bit slower than expected.
The determined duo's current goal? Competing in all 6 Abbott World Marathon Majors. They've done Chicago, New York, Boston, London, and Berlin. There's just one more major marathon until they become one of the first teams to complete all 6, Tokyo, which they are set to compete in March 2025.
It feels amazing. It feels like my real future is gone, and I'm doing the running myself.
You're gonna make me cry.